our people go free. I guess so too, like to see. I'm just trying to help our people go free. I'm just like to see. You're too right. I'm just trying to see people go free. I'm just trying to see. I'm just trying to help our people go free.
Good evening, America. I'm Jason, and you are watching Jason Goes Political. It's wonderful to be with you all this evening, and it's according to be a cozy affair. I assume you may financially gift over on Entropy at a cost of 15% to you, Odyssey at 15% to you, Cash App at no percent to you. The links for those are in the description below. For the sake of continuity, everything $19 or lower will be reserved for the end of the show. Everything else I will read and address as soon as I see it. Everything $20 or more. Otherwise, you may tag me as No White Guilt, and when I see your comment, I will address it then or later. Twitter board unanimously recommends Musk's takeover bid. Elon Musk's deal would take Twitter private at $54.20 a share. And that's what Fox News is telling us. And there are a lot of folks out there right now who are saying, oh, it's a done deal. But I looked briefly at this, and I don't know that it's a done deal just yet. Twitter's board unanimously recommended that its shareholders vote to approve Tesla CEO Elon Musk's $44 billion acquisition of the social media giant. The Twitter board, after considering various factors described in the section of this proxy statement captioned, quote, the merger recommendation of the Twitter board and reasons for the merger, has unanimously, one, determined that the merger agreement is advisable and the merger as though it would not be. I mean, there would be, I would imagine, many, many lawsuits from shareholders if the board continues to stand in the way. The board primarily made up of people, composed of people who are not shareholders. Determined that the merger agreement is advisable and the merger and other transactions contemplated by the merger agreement are fair too, advisable and in the best interest of Twitter and its stockholders, and two, adopted and approved the merger. The company said in a Securities and Exchange Commission filing, this is today, Tuesday, the deal, which is currently expected to close in 2022, would take Twitter private at $54.20 per share. Cha-ching for everybody who has a shit ton of Twitter shares, and congratulations to you all. Elon Musk questions whether this is just another piece of news that's in the middle of this Fox article. TikTok is destroying civilization. He's not wont to hyperbole at all. The filing comes as Musk said in an interview Tuesday at the Qatar Economic Forum that shareholders' approval was one of the three unresolved matters that stands in the way of the deal. And the reason I'm talking about this at all in our cozy little get-together here on Jason Goes Political is that if we do indeed see Twitter change hands, are we going to have an opportunity there, a genuine opportunity to push back against the Democrats? And what might the Democrats have in store? I suspect and predicted when this particular purchase was first being discussed and Musk moved in and bought a great many shares of stock, that the reason Twitter was powerful was because the rest of the anti-white regime decided to say that it was powerful, that it didn't have this power in and of itself. Now, that doesn't mean that Musk can't make it into something that can change minds, that he can't make it into something where there is genuine freedom of speech and people can persuade each other, and it isn't just this top-down oligarchs confusing and muddying the minds of the millions. There's a possibility for that. There's the question of how many Democrats whose ideology is anti-whiteism. And when I say Democrat, I mean Democrat voter, people who would vote Democrat if they weren't on the sex offender registry, people who would vote Democrat if they weren't in prison for murder and mass murder, and people who would vote Democrat if they weren't in prison for rape, people who would vote Democrat if they weren't clinically insane and foaming at the mouth, sitting on a beach surrounded by garbage that had been dumped into the ocean by China, but it's okay if they do it because they're non-white. I'm talking about everybody that would vote Democrat, whether they're in office or not. And that's pretty much all the anti-whites, isn't it? So are they really going to stay, and is it really going to matter? And if they go, or if the majority of them leave Twitter, because, and I think what's going to happen is the anti-white oligarchs are going to now say that TikTok, just as Musk is saying TikTok is destroying civilization with a tweet, are they going to say now TikTok is where we get the real pulse of what the world community, of what the national community, of what have you, the continental community is thinking. And therefore, that is our citation for what we're going to do at this university, what we're going to do at this county government, what we're going to do at this state government, what we're going to do at the federal government, whatever it might be. That's where we take the pulse of what the people think. Because that's what I believe they did with Twitter. I don't believe, and everybody seems to have fallen for this, and we'll see, maybe I'm wrong. But you know what? If I end up being right, nobody but you good people will say so, right? Nobody but you good people will say so. Everybody else, all these other content creators and organization leaders, they'll just suddenly, as they have many other times, they'll just be like, zip, throw that away. So I think it's entirely possible that they're just going to pivot away from it. But is the deal even done yet? Is the deal even done? He also said, this is Musk speaking here, that he is waiting for a resolution to his dispute with Twitter over the total percentage of spam and fake accounts on the platform, which he called a, quote, a very significant matter. Because you're not going to be able to make money. You're not going to be able to bring businesses in for advertising if the population on your platform is composed of bots who don't have lives and paying for products, right? A bot is really not going to need a product to remove hair off your legs or whatever it might be that you have an issue with, right? At least not yet. Maybe in the future they will. But right now they don't. And there's another element here as well. And that is, I believe, and I could be wrong, that Twitter, the anti-whites at Twitter, all Democrat voters, of course, that they, in my opinion, that they have been faking accounts, that they have been, that it has been bots, or they've allowed bots to be there so that they could charge those who run advertisements much more for the amount of views that they're getting, right? You have the click-through rate, you have all of these sort of matrices that they use to determine how much the advertising is going to cost companies who advertise on Twitter. I think this is happening everywhere in social media, across all the different social media platforms. And so that's why, potentially why companies have been slow to move to advertise on these platforms, because they suspect it as well. But to have it revealed is going to be the big issue. To have it known for sure, okay, all of these companies were paying these gigantic sums for advertising, and a third or 20% or whatever of the people who were clicking through and who were having their advertisements, maybe it's for gasoline, and maybe it's on everybody's mind these days. Don't catch me at a gas station. They were paid whatever amount it was, and so many of those people were actually just bot accounts. Though Twitter has maintained that spam and fake accounts make up less than 5% of its users, Musk believes the figure is at least 20%. And it was a completely, I looked at this, and in the examination that the assay that Twitter had done to determine this number of 5%, and it was just asinine, inane, totally self-serving, nowhere close to being an actual scientific examination of the user base. It was completely, in my opinion, it was completely ridiculous. Earlier this month, Twitter reportedly agreed to hand over, quote, a fire hose of data to Musk after a fire hose. Interesting that they would come up with a fire hose of data. It's kind of like the problems they have after that one night stand. They have a fire hose of something else going off that they need meds for. He threatened to walk away from the deal. So he threatened to walk away. Of course, you all know this. So where is this going to go, and what opportunities does that give us? And are we looking at an illusion? Is this something that is actually quite illusory, that is quite ephemeral, that he's suddenly going to come in, he's going to own this company outright, and he's going to be able to do what he wants with it. And those who are conservative or patriotic, nationalistic, whatever, they're going to be getting back onto the platform. They won't be getting censored from the platform. Is it going to just turn into another echo chamber for those folks? Or are we going to see the creation of, what did I call it last time? I just came up with it on the spur of the moment, like these different Twitter verses, like Twitter universes, so that there would be a Twitter verse for anti-whites, for Democrats. And perhaps you could go over there, but there would be some rules there. Who knows? Who knows what he's going to end up doing? There are a lot of options. I mean, I could, just sitting here with you all, I could probably come up with 10 different things that he could do to try to keep these people on the platform, because he wants their money. He doesn't care about how many Democrat votes or how anti-white they are. He just wants their money. Let's jump over to, what was I going to look at? The spirit of MAGA. Now, this is something we have to decide, and I'll just think with you right now. We're going to be together until maybe the top of the hour, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, maybe just a little bit after that, because I know Tucker starts, and some people might want to watch this guy. As far as I'm concerned, he's a loser until he has me on. If he has me on, then he's the greatest guy ever, and I will laud him till the end of days, and we all will. But no, for now, he's just he's a feckless. But he is though taking. We may have been speaking in so many ways to staff there, and we're seeing. We could see more. You might see more flourish of the lexicon. But having said that, I mean, getting him to say that is very different than having me on. So we'll see. But the spirit of MAGA, what is that going to end up being? Who decides? This is the Republican Party. It has been the challenge for conservatives, for patriotic Americans, for nationalistic Americans. It has been the challenge forever, your entire lives, your parents' lives, their parents' lives. It has been a challenge. Because the Republican Party, I mean, you did have the Democrats, where it used to be, and probably folks who are maybe 50 and older, they can still remember that, or if they've read about it. And it used to be like the Democrat Party was known as the party that watched out for the working man, and the Republican Party was the party that watched out for the businessman. And then there was a revolution of sorts in the Democrat Party, and both parties were already angling, and they had been for a long, long time, many decades, very anti-white in everything that they were doing. But there was a revolution of sorts in the Democrat Party in Chicago. There was a mini one before that, and the Democrat Party really became the party of anti-whiteism, their ideology. It's all about anti-white from dawn till dusk and all through the night. The Republicans, the vast majority, regrettably, of elected Republicans are anti-white as well. How do you end up with a bunch of anti-whites leading the Republican Party as well? Those elected and those behind the scenes. Well, because those behind the scenes, let me finish. How do you end up with that when you have this sprawling millions of people who are not anti-white. They might villainy signal anti-whiteism because they want to keep their jobs. They might villainy signal it. And here we say villainy signal rather than virtue signal because we're not stupid. And they do so because they want to keep their job. They don't want to be ostracized from family. They don't want, etc. Right? Because we live underneath of this anti-white narrative and this anti-white morality in America. It's time to say it, for the love of God. It's time to say it. And please share the URL. We're going to be getting on to the DeSantis and the 5 big Supreme Court decisions that you need to know about. We're going to give you a little bit of information on each one. But everything we're going to be talking about today is far more important than anything else in the world. So if you move away from your device and the information you're taking in, you are going to miss out on something that you will never be able to regain in life. If you stay, you'll be able to tell the story to your great-great-grandchildren that you were there that day, that information was being shared on Jason Goes Political. It'll be that story that you tell again and again. The coworkers get sick of it, and the great-grandchildren and grandchildren get sick of it. But it'll still be your story. And then when you're lying in your casket, if that's what you would like to do, at the very end, your friends will sit around telling the story about how you were here on this day. That's how important it is to be going free, watching No White Guilt, Jason Goes Political, and all things that are white positive. You're welcome. So it's important that we combat, and it's not been done before. It's not been organized in a really effective way ever. When I worked on the Hill, well, let me go into combat who, right? We need to go to metaphorical war against who? The financiers of the Republican Party. Now, there are a lot of good financiers that are like mid-level financiers, several rungs up above working class folks. But I mean, they'll show up and they'll give like $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, maybe even $40,000 every time they're going to write a check. And these are largely, not entirely, but almost entirely white folk who are patriotic, they're conservative, but they're older and they are infinitely more gullible. The big difference that I don't hear spoken about very often, I don't do as you all know, I don't do the gender divide thing. I don't say that, or not gender, the different age range. So you're talking about I don't do the gender divide thing either, though. I mean, how many times has it been chopped up now to like 87 different ways? Now, the different generations. So people hate boomers, or they hate this group, or they say that the people born in this period, they're weak here, strong there, whatever it might be. I don't do that. Because for every argument that they make, and these folks they're making these arguments normally intelligent elsewhere, and I think that if they weren't driven so much by pettiness, and in particular looking to place blame, they're always looking. That's a failing. That's a flaw in your character when you're always looking to place blame somewhere else. The blame is all over the place. And placing blame doesn't get us anywhere closer to recapturing our destiny. So we have to focus on what we can do to take steps in the right direction. So people will say about boomers, look at what they allowed the country to become during their lives. They didn't fight back against this. Well, many of them did to the best of their ability with the knowledge that they had available to them. But I say to everybody all the way down to Zoomers and whatever who want to complain about boomers, I say, what are you doing now about the border? What are you doing? Why are you letting this happen, loser? Why are you letting this happen? So think about that next time you want to complain about the boomers or whatever generation you want to talk about. Think about that at that moment. You're allowing the record numbers that you have never seen. Over 200,000 captures, more than that every month. More than that are cited and not caught. They get away. And these are people who, of course, are intruders by the strict definition because they're not invited. They're not invited. They're an intruder, right? If somebody comes into your home who's not invited, that person is an intruder. Your country is your home. So if a person comes in who is not invited, they are an intruder. So these intruders, since Biden got in office, I heard what the department is it? A CB something, the chief saying that it's been like 3 point something million intruders since Biden got a year and a half. 3 point something million. That's not my numbers. Please go look it up. Go look up the specific departments in the government. Go to CNN first, of course, but look up these numbers. So if you're a Zoomer or any other generation in between there who want to complain and lay blame on boomers because they didn't do enough, just point to the past year and a half. What have you done? And don't you dare say, well, I couldn't do anything. I'm just, well, then shut up. Just shut up. The thing that is overlooked when it comes to older folks, whether it is just the boomers or the next rung down, is that they grew up, and specifically the boomers, they grew up in a white America. Many of these people, they end up in business. They end up doing very well as we're nearing the bottom of the hour. They end up doing very well let me just rephrase. The ones who end up doing well, they own a business or businesses. They either worked in those businesses or they just checked in every now and again, which meant that they were not actually, if they're working, if they're checking in quarterly, that means they're employees, like a regular worker. But that's a whole nother argument. I won't get into that. But these people, they do well. And then they show up, they get invited. The Republican Party finds out who they are, and they invite them in. And then they get to see big money, folks. Scores of millions, centimillionaires, decamillionaires, and they write giant checks. And then all these folks who grew up in a white America, where unless you were in the heart of some of the worst cities in the country, we're talking here about an America that was 90% white and infinitely less crowded, where nature was infinitely more pristine than it is today. They grew up. That's the world that's still in their head. That's the only thing that you can observe about these folks that are that age and understand why they are so vacuous in their heads. Why is it that they seem like they can't get it? They can be, you could have like a mackerel, a fish, and you could be hitting them in the face with a mackerel that you have carved truth into the side of, and they won't get it. The vast majority won't get it. The best will get it. All right. The ones, there are folks, I know many of them, they'll get it. They know what's actually going on. But the vast majority of them out there, especially these folks who with their dollars are able to keep moving away, white flighting further and further away from what's happening in the country, things becoming more of a conflict with their biospirit, things becoming potentially more dangerous in some area. They just keep moving away. So they are able to maintain the semblance of 1950s America and earlier. They're able to maintain, or all the way up through the 60s, they're able to maintain with their dollars the semblance that it's still like it was when they were children. And remember, we always have that child inside of us. It never goes away. Whatever you grew up with, it never grows away. That's why people who are even these well-read, and they will quote periods in history and all of this different stuff, they'll give you a date that is inside their lifetime for when things got bad. Things didn't get bad then. Their ability to notice is what happened. So these wonderful people, they get out there as goofy, as infuriating as they are, as functionally comatose as they are. They are that way because they grew up in safe, pristine nature, pristine environment, white America, the way that it was so control over our manifest destiny there at their fingertips. What's going to be next? Walk on the moon. What's going to be next? Win the cold. I mean, just one victory after another. What's going to be next? That's where they grew up. All right. They then use their money that they've made, and we're talking about the ones that made money. Just forget about this where there's all boomers, and they're not all riding around on $60,000 Harleys with $120,000 RVs and taking. I mean, give me a break, all right? Give me a break. So those though that have that kind of money, they just kept moving away from the carnage that was taken, not the carnage they caused. Maybe they participated in some way. Maybe they participated by being tacit. Maybe they said nothing about it. But nonetheless, they kept moving away. So for them, that world is still kind of there. They go to these Republican events. They see the big financiers who are hardcore anti-white. The big financiers of the Republican Party, hardcore anti-whites. They are just as hardcore anti-white as the financiers of the Democrat Party. That doesn't mean they can't be overcome. They have dissension in their ranks too. There are financiers that would like to finance political activity, but they're not going to bother participating in the Republican Party. They're not going to bother writing checks if ultimately they're going to be essentially outbid by financiers who are roughly on their level. And then all of these boobies out there who they say, well, we've had our third vacation. Now we got to go to the Republican event. And, it's $5,000 a seat. And we're going to be there with these deca and centimillionaires. And then if we really get invigorated, we're going to break out the checkbook and we're going to write down $50,000 to them, $100,000 to them, because they have the money to do that. And they're thinking that white America is just a step away. It's just a step away in their heads, but it's also a step away because they keep moving and further away from the carnage. And it's very easy to look away from it. It gets really hard to talk to these people and to bring them over when so many folks are slandering the shit out of them. They need to have their face put in what's happening, but they don't need to be told that they're the problem. All right? So the battle for the spirit of resistance, political resistance in the United States, the battle for that spirit is between the patriots, which have, thanks to Donald Trump, largely become known as MAGA movement, MAGA country, MAGA folks, whatever it is. This is the same. It encompasses the Tea Party folks. It encompasses constitutionalists. It encompasses so much more, right? The battle is between that group of people, which is, disparate, which is heterogeneous in many ways, which can be difficult to reach, especially because these different platforms, like these alternative platforms that have sprung up, like Getter, they're already from the beginning of the platform already censoring, already controlling, already etc. So the battle is between that group, which is us, and who are the folks that are going to be the most active, the most angry in that group, the MAGA movement, if you will. Who are the folks that are going to be the most angry? The folks who are going to be the most angry and the most active, those folks who need to be activated and organized and galvanized to take action, and can, if galvanized to take action as an entity, can take and redefine the spirit of what will be opposition to anti-whiteism, predominantly represented by the Democrat Party in the United States. Who is that group? White males. So you're looking at white males 50 years and down into their teens. That is the group that is victimized the most. Now, the more you go from 50 years of age down, the percentage of that overall number increases that are likely to be angry and are likely to want to participate in some sort, participate with their money, participate with their ingenuity, intelligence, creativity, time. The percentage grows as you get away from 50 and get younger. Why is that? Because the older as you run up through 50 or so, you're running into people who are, they have families, They have, a lot of them have retarded children. I mean, retarded as a medical term, not to make fun of anybody, because there is this retarded children everywhere. And for every retarded or handicapped child, or however you want to call it, in the different ways that they can be handicapped, you're taking a minimum 2 people out of the population to have to take care of the handicapped child for the rest of their lives in many cases. You know, in the old days, the very old days, antediluvian days, and maybe before antediluvian days, they used to, smart generals, smart conquerors, when they would take over, defeat an army in the field, if they were very bloodthirsty, and especially if they potentially faced defeat further down the line. This is really one of the only ways that you can compete when it's a contest of attrition and your adversary has more to go on, more people, more resources, etc., which means that eventually you will lose the contest. The best thing to do in that scenario is what sometimes was done, which is you take all of the prisoners and you blind them all, and then you send them back. So the more prisoners there are that you blind and send back, handicap, the more of the population of your adversary is consumed taking care of all of the blind. So that's kind of what's happened, isn't it? So if you're looking at it from that angle, it makes you ask some other questions about, you know, in like a video game, if it were Sim City, I guess they don't have battles and war in Sim City. But whatever video game they have, they could have war, and you have your own cities, and you build them. Sorry, I don't play video games because I'm a man. But so in a video game, and if it were set like in modern time, and you were some kind of behind the curtain oligarch, and you were worried about the population getting upset with what you were doing, I don't know, you might make a shit ton of them handicapped somehow, so that the population would have to be taking care of all of these handicapped rather than dealing with the tyrant above them. Just saying, in a video game, that would be something that you would expect to see, just to ask questions there. That's a video game, not the real world, because nobody in the real world would do anything that monstrous, I can assure you. So that means, who are we when we say who are we? Young white males, pissed off, patriotic, and ready to do something about it. Sick and tired of being the butt of the joke. Sick and tired of being told that the source of all evil. Sick and tired of being blamed for the shortcomings and the failings of everyone and everything else on planet Earth. Sick and tired of being cited as the reason why anything that happens moving forward is their fault, and as a consequence, it is them who have to be victimized for anything that could ever happen and anything that has ever happened. So when they go to compete in a job, they go out into the world, they want to get themselves a girlfriend, they want to get themselves a wife, they want to have children, they want to have a family, and they've done their due diligence trying to get work, they got their education, they got their training, they're putting their resume out there, and no matter what they do, everywhere they go, they're not getting a job, not getting the job that they deserve, not getting the promotions they deserve, not enough money, shit on at work. If they get the job, they can't get loans, so they can't build up any sort of resource in the bank with good credit. They can't go out and take steps to purchase homes to get wealthier, or to purchase automobiles to repair to get wealthier, or purchase motorcycles to repair and resell and get wealthier, or boats, or whatever it might be. They can't do any of this because the prices of those things are all through the roof because of other things that are done in the economy, not least of which is the fact that there are literally thousands upon thousands upon thousands of programs in the federal government that takes money from these white guys' pockets and then distributes it to women and non-whites on the basis of their being women and the basis of them being non-white, for personal enrichment, betterment loans, for business loans, which is the worst, and for business grants, money given away. Most of those loans are also forgiven if you just follow the money trail in the end as well. And so it's these white guys that are the ones that the appeal has to be made to them. And then the rest of the white population, including all of these wealthy, I'm not talking about rich, I'm not talking about Trump rich or anything like that. All of these wealthy whites who are now their 60s and their 70s and their 80s, 90s even with their money, they're surviving longer and longer. They need to fall in line. So the question has to be how to wrangle all of that and to organize it against these anti-white Republican oligarchs that you could say they're in the background, but you can also read their names. You can also see exactly who they are. And you can look right at their strategists. When I was on the Hill working in the first term of Bush W., the absolute the inanity of that White House, all because of how dumb he was. I mean, as dumb as Biden is now, what were we calling it? Oh, yeah, rigor mortis. That's right. Patrick of Southtown reminded me of that. President Mortis. As dumb and dead and much of a corpse as he is, W was dumber. That guy had no marbles in his head at all. But all the way back then, I got to look right into the face of the Republican strategists. I got to look right into the face. If you want to know exactly, one of these days I'll be able to tell you when the guy dies. But because it was off the record and they had my word not to say, but you can read more about it in my book, Born Guilty, which you can get on Amazon. And you can also find it at nowhitehillcollectibles.com. And I got to look right in the face of the key Republican strategist as he said, we're not going to do anything for white people. Nothing for them. All the way back. This didn't just start for shit's sake. You got all these young guys out there talking now about how this like appeal to Hispanics, this appeal to blacks. My friends, you're still wet behind your ears. You need to talk less and listen more because you sound really foolish. I sat in a meeting all the way back in 2001 and listened to these people talk about how, and that might even be longer ago than you are old, and listen to these people talk about, and by the way, it was happening before I got there, about how everything was going to be for blacks, everything was going to be for Hispanics, some was going to be set aside for Asians and Arabs. And of course, the whole time, Jews it's just like they get, the first choice. And nothing done for white people. I'm telling you what I witnessed, my interpretation, my opinions of their statements in meetings that were off the record. And so I've given my word, and I won't say until those people pass. And I'm sure they will. One of these days, I mean, even the evil die eventually, right? But the Republican Party has been focused on, and you can even, a cursory examination on the internet, you can see all of these different programs the Republican Party has marched out, even before you were born. They started talking about Big Tent. They started talking about et cetera. And they keep bringing in to the top of the Republican Party, and everybody knows it, folks to try to remake the Republican Party. I mean, I have to tell you, I saw a speech by Herschel Walker. I didn't intend to talk on this tonight. And there were just slews of white people just accepting whatever the Republican hierarchy tells them. This is the way to go. This is what's right. This makes sense. He can hardly put two sentences together. I mean, he's been hit in the head a lot. I don't know. Maybe he was brilliant before football. But he can't think anymore. When you say the word really, was it 4 or 5 times in a row? Really, 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 really good. I mean, you are also, like the TARDIS, you are a retardis, the phone booth. And yet all these white people with their Republican MAGA gear on, cheering, and they're just clapping, and most of them women, and they're almost like in like a nirvanic state. It's like some sort of ecstatic. They're just, oh my God, he's a non-white guy that agrees with us. And so therefore all of our opinions are validated by, no, it's not. he'll be called a white supremacist. But here's the thing that ends up being really disgusting to me. I mean, there's so many things about it, but what's striking me right now is that his big thing is being a big Christian. And so you've got these slews, we talked about last, was it the last Jason Goes Political, the one before that, where we talked about how the MAGA movement is beginning to struggle for an identity. What's it going to be? Is it going to go back to status quo of what the Republican establishment is, Con Inc., or is it going to continue to be something like MAGA? Is Trump coming back, or is he not? We're still waiting to see if he rises from the dead. Or is it going to become some sort of a Christian movement? And again, those who think Christian nationalism is new, you're just demonstrating how myopic, no, how purblind you actually are. You are brand new, and you need to do more listening, more reading, more studying. Christian nationalism has been tried scores of times in the United States. It's going nowhere. There are too many different definitions to Christianity, Catholicism, Mormonism. There's too many ways for anti-whites, Democrats, to drive a wedge between this group of Christians and that group of Christians on numerous different points. So that, and not only that, bottom line is Christianity in the past was far healthier, far more homogeneous in that it was white in the United States. And anti-white ideology and anti-whites defeated it when it was big and healthy. So when Christianity in the United States was like Schwarzenegger at his prime, right? When Christianity could flex its bicep and you could see it on the Richter scale, that was when it was defeated. Now Christianity is like an 80-pound punk who can't keep, as a movement, I guess you could say like a social political movement that the people who are Christians carry into their world and their political ideas and their voting patterns. Now it's like an 80-pound guy out on that beach with Schwarzenegger out there, and he can't keep his trunks up because his hips are too narrow, and he's got no muscle whatsoever. That is what Christianity is today. It is absolutely drained of all vitality as an organizing entity, not as a religion, not as individual Christians. It's a beautiful thing. We're talking about two different things there. Christian people who are worshiping God, and Christianity as an organizational galvanizing entity for socio-political activity. Two completely different things. You have to be able to see the difference. So you also see this, are we going to be Christian nationalists again? And because of it, you have all of these white people, Christian good folk, who are accepting people running for office who claim that their family members talk to angels. Do you think the normal millions and millions of white folk in the country are going to vote for people who are having psychotic delusions? And how about Herschel Walker, the news coming out that he has, 3 children out of wedlock with 3 different women? In that big rally that I was talking about, that was after that news came out. So talk about the hypocrisy of those. Are those good Christians? And so how easy is it then to undermine all of those Christians who say, well, I'm going to overlook what he did because he's such a good Christian. And then the Democrats, anti-whites in general, show up and they say, well, you don't want to be a hypocrite. You know, God doesn't like that. Christian God doesn't like that. You don't want to be a hypocrite. So since you held a standard here, you have to hold another standard there. Since you have to, and folks, they just drop away. It's happened every single time. 100,000 disappear there, 100,000 disappear, 500,000 disappear there. It's very easy for them to defeat that. You also have people, when you have this struggle right now for the identity of what's going to be the MAGA movement. I say that the resistance to Democrats in the United States has to be the angrier than hell white male who is patriotic and is sick of it. So if you want an organizing visual a pissed off white man. That is the organizing visual. A pissed off white man. So it continues. So the big strategists, the big thinkers, are those that claim that they are, like Steve Bannon, mocked in front of a courthouse as he vows, the Republican Party, he's supposedly talking for them, to govern for 100 years. Former Trump advisor Steve Bannon attempt at a fiery populist speech. And what does populism mean to these people that we need to be waging metaphorical war against? And by the way, how do you do it? Well, we can get into that in future Jason Goes Political episodes, but ultimately they have to be exposed and ridiculed and mocked in person, everywhere they go. They can't be able to go a single place and get on video without being hit with metaphorical tomatoes. Former Trump advisor Steve Bannon, Bannon's attempt at a fiery populist speech in front of a federal courthouse was marred by a single protester on Wednesday. That's all it took. Some looks like a white guy with a sign held up that says "failed coup, idiot." But nonetheless, that could be all it takes to make these losers look like the losers they are. Bannon is one of the lead losers. Former Trump advisor Steve Bannon's attempted fiery speech, okay? Bannon's is asking a Trump-appointed judge to dismiss through contempt of Congress charges against him for refusing to cooperate with the January 6th committee. When he arrived at the courthouse Wednesday morning, his team was already waiting and prepared. Okay, I just want to get down to what he said here. We believe in free and fair and transparent elections. We're winning everywhere. This is going to be a massive blowout like 1932. You're witnessing right now a political realignment like 32, and we will govern for 100 years after we win 100 seats. First, I want to point this out, and this is sort of an ancillary thought to the main issue here about the spirit. What's going to be the spirit? What's going to be the defining image of the resistance to the Democrats in America by way of the vehicle of the Republican Party? Is that beware of content creators, of political strategists, hack bastards like this, and organizational leaders, etc. Beware when they make predictions and ownership about things that are inevitable, or maybe not necessarily inevitable, but things that are highly probable, because every charlatan worth his weight in shit will claim that the obvious victory that's coming is his doing. And that's what Bannon is doing here. People are going to turn out to reject Democrats, not to endorse Republicans, because who are the Republicans? A bunch of losers that we have to reclaim. They're coming out to reject Democrats. Bannon is looking out as a charlatan extraordinaire. And he's looking out and saying, let me just test the wind. Oh, okay. So we have inflation through the roof. We have double and triple percentage price increases on all of the necessary goods. It is getting worse and worse by the day for the individual to live his or her life. And so they're going to reject the party that's in office. And so therefore, because of our leadership, implied that I was actually in charge, but because of our leadership, we're going to win this coming gigantic, and we're going to crush the opposition, and we're going to be governing for hundreds of years. When somebody does that, they're a charlatan. Steve Bannon has no control over this backlash, this blowback of what the Democrats have done, the printing of all the money, monetary easing, and all of these terms, these euphemisms they use for just running the printing press like it's the toilet paper after they eat at Taco Bell, printing all of that money. Then you had the Build Back Better and all the printing there. Then you had the war on oil, which has yanked all the permits. The oil companies, the CEOs, their business owners, they're not going to do any business when they're afraid that they are going to, as soon as they're going to invest a bunch of money, it's going to immediately all be taken from them. So of course, they're not building plants and building and pumping and et cetera, everything that they could be doing right now, because there's a war on them. The corpse in chief, President Mortis, rigor mortis to you, he said so during his campaign. He said in the debates, there's a war. I'm ending oil in America. I'm ending it. All of those people in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Ohio, where they mine coal, even though it's going to clean coal plants, we're going to put them all out of work too. We're going to end it all in America. They just want to blame it also on like the green people, the Green New Deal and the green this and the green, not talking about Martians, more like people infected with multiple STDs, Democrat voters, not everyone. But nonetheless, you want to talk about that. It's not about that. It is about, you got to have your head on right. Sorry, I keep shifting around to different topics, but it's about destroying America. It's about destroying the lives of white working class people. That is what it's about. Look at the owners of all of these different companies. It's not, there are a lot of white owners. It's not about they get all the things that they want. It's about harming as many white people as possible. It is about destroying America as we know it. That is what it's about. That is what dictates all their actions. So Steve Bannon, so watch out for that. People who claim that the oncoming victory, like the inevitable, like, well, here goes a freight train and there's another freight train coming the other direction on the same railroad. Folks, I'm going to make a prediction. Get your dollars out and pocket watches, put them in my hat, because these trains are going to collide. Whenever you see somebody, they're a charlatan. That's Bannon. There are a lot of content creators out there in Con Inc. and Alternative out there who will do this sort of thing. And then the second thing they do, connected to that sort of behavior, is declare victory as though it's theirs after things happen, which might have been nobody's victory, but if it turned out good for patriots or conservatives or things like this, they'll claim that we did it. We showed them. When they didn't do shit. They didn't do shit. But there's so many of you out there who are so mid-witted, that you just don't get that you didn't do anything, and the person you keep giving your dollars and time to didn't do anything. So when you see somebody doing that, they're a charlatan. They're just getting rich off you being dumb. So give it up. The real point I wanted to make about Bannon relates to the spirit and the identity of the resistance to the Democrats. And that is, Bannon says in here, wait, I think it's right here. Well, I believe, quote, well, I believe that we will destroy the Democrat Party as a national political institution, close quote. He replied, quote, a populist uprising of Hispanics, African Americans, and working class people is before us. They hate you if you're white. They hate your mother if she's white. They hate your father, definitely, if he's white. They hate your sons if they're white. There's a little bit of a reprieve for white girls because they can give it up. But for the white males, the white little boys and everything, they hate you to the end of time. And it doesn't matter how colorblind you are. It is asinine to bring this color blindness to a race fight. They see what race you are, and they know what your people have created, and they are actively destroying it. We, as with the symbolism of the angry white man, have to claim the identity of the resistance, the spirit of the resistance against Democrats, because if you leave it in the hands of these Republican financiers that are anti-white, if you leave it in the hands of the Republicans who are in office, who are almost every single one radical anti-white, and then it's just various, none of them are white positive out there. None of them put America before the all of the claims and all of the hurts and all of the injuries of all of these other different groups of people, whether it's race-based or something else based. We have to do this, and we could talk more about that moving forward. But that is, Steve Bannon there was a great example. And here we have this, as we're going to move quickly as we hit the top of the hour, 8 o'clock. Is rising MAGA star Ron DeSantis the man to displace Trump in 2024? This writes at The Guardian, rabidly anti-white. You know, if I were in office, and here on Jason Goes Political, I like to talk about what I would do if I were in office. I would ruin the news outlets that continue to lie. I would ruin them by any means, by any legal means that I could get away with. I would ruin all of them. And I would make an example of some for lying, for their endless lying, for their endless slander, for their psychological warfare they practice on the American population. Trump, like a real coward, totally effete, allowed CNN to stay in the press corps at the White House. I would have had their asses out on the side. I would have had them physically removed, picked up and removed, and they would have never been allowed back. That's why he was being a businessman. That's what he is. He's a brilliant businessman, no doubt, and no statesman. As Donald Trump, and as nice as he was, still slandering the shit out of him, as Donald Trump continues to prevaricate over a further run for the White House in 24, another name has emerged as a possible candidate for the Republican Party's nomination. Florida Governor's Ron DeSantis, which I'm told has just recently allowed the, should I say this? Injections to be given to children. The rising star of the conservative MAGA movement, named for Trump's, quote, "Make America Great Again" campaign slogan, has beaten the former president in several recent polls of party activists, some of whom appear to finally be growing weary of Trump's big lie that the 2020 election was stolen. And with Trump's grip on Republicans taking hits, aided by scrutiny of his actions around scrutiny of his actions around the deadly Patriot Day, not a riot, it's Patriots Day, when a mob of his supporters ransacked the Capitol building. No, you're a lying POS. There would need to be a law put on the books so that when a reporter does this, and the entity for which he or she works can be sued into oblivion, can be criminally charged, not sued by individuals, sued by the state, so that they end up having to pay the people, the working class of America, for the lies that they perpetuate and originate and promulgate. In an attempt to keep him in power. Some analysts say the time could be right for a younger, more appealing candidate to seize the baton. DeSantis, only 43, he looks older than that, appears to offer everything that the MAGA base would want in a candidate. A high-profile yet irascible and media hostile politician. Really? I mean, is that what's happening? You mean he's not allowing you as reporters to just kick the shit out of him and just take it there? How dare he defend himself? He should allow himself to have the media just kick his ass. He embraces ultra-conservative tenets of Trumpism. I'm going to go further. We're like ultra-mega MAGA conservatism. We are supernova patriotism, you dirty Democrat mother. That's what we are. So I'll go first. You want to say ultra-conservative? No, we're the nationalists who, given our druthers and what we want, will make sure that people like you never get to write another word. But without the baggage of Trump's 2 impeachments and 7 million vote thumping in 2020 election after a single term in office. While Trump, who left the White House in January 2021, berates his end. Could you imagine the Democrats trying to come to me, any anti-white, trying to come to me and saying, "Oh, where's my smelling sauce? He opposes freedom of speech." You don't joke around. Don't play around. You've been cutting the tongue out of my mouth for my whole life, and out of everybody standing up against you for our whole lives. The conservatives, the patriots, the nationalists, whose day is coming that will put you in your place, is ready and willing to go further than you have ever gone in your efforts for power. It's not going to be Mayberry anymore. It's not going to be a functionally comatose white person, goofy as all get out, that you get to beat up on anymore. So you go ahead and say, my God, he's not going to allow us to say whatever we want. Damn right. Damn right I'm not going to allow you to say whatever you want. You kidding me? Censor me after platform, for platform after platform. You guys. No, it'd be jail. It'd be jail. Hillary would have long been in jail if it had been me instead of Trump. A military tribunal, if the courts wouldn't have done it. And then the judges who wouldn't have done it, military tribunal. And if generals wouldn't have done it, firing squad. While Trump, who left the White House in January 2021, berates his enemies, real and perceived, from his waterfront Mar-a-Lago mansion in Palm Beach. So real and perceived, because he's just out of it. He's just loony. Unlike the corpse in chief, who's bleeding his organs through his thinning skin. He's sharp as a tack. DeSantis has been enhancing his governing credentials from the Florida governor's mansion in Tallahassee. In recent weeks, he has signed numerous, quote, culture war bills into law. So you cannot allow this. You cannot allow this garbage. Or you have to do something to go against it. You have to say, okay, you want to talk like this? Well, as the federal government, we're going to put a warning on everything you write, that you are radical anti-white POS, and that every word you write is meant to manipulate the human mind so that people submit and they lower their guard and they allow you to victimize them, as you have been victimizing patriotic Americans for over 100 years. So he's waging a culture war, but that's not what the Democrats are doing. Oh no, they're just looking out for people's feelings. Signed bills into law, including stripping black voters of power by gerrymandering. This SOB would be under, his cell would be, or her cell would be so far under the prison. And if this is a platform that's outside of the country, okay, we'll just block that thing. We'll just take ownership and control of the internet back from the UN. We'll do whatever we want with it. We have the military might. We'll do whatever we want. Gerrymandering Florida's, Democrats do this endlessly. Gerrymander is their middle name. Restricting congressional districts to favor, restricting how race and diversity are discussed and addressed in schools and business. So that's restricting how words are used. That's what this bastard who is typing this away while smoking up bath salts wants you to believe, rather than he is inhibiting the demonization, even obliquely. See, that's all you got to do. He's not even saying it, but they still go after him as though he did. See, if I were the governor of Florida, I would say, and then the white population would know, and then everybody would know. And then when they read this shit, right, if I was there and I said, we're not going to allow you to demonize white people anymore. End of it. Sick of it. End of it. Not at work, not at school, definitely not with white children. You're not going to demonize white people anymore. Then when this guy says, restricting how race and diversity are discussed, every local yokel, no matter where they are, if they're midget wit, midwit, whatever they are, they're going to be able to say, oh, this writer wants to demonize white people and demonize white children. You say it like DeSantis and these Republicans say it, they're never going to get it. And how do I know? Because I've talked to them for years and years and years, and still do. And addressing schools and business and banning conversations of gender identity and sexual orientation in certain Florida classrooms with his, and then they give the don't say gay law. This is a name the anti-whites came up with. If I were in Florida, I haven't really been concerning myself with politics for many years. I've been concerning myself with far more profound endeavors to reclaim the destiny of this country and our people, Western kind. And as a consequence, I have not immediately jumped in. What I did observe when these anti-whites immediately started calling it the don't say gay bill, don't say gay law. I guess it was the bill first. DeSantis, I saw a video of him, 2 videos I think it was of him, where he said, it's not the don't say gay bill. I'm sick of the. No, that's idiotic. You name it for the people who are being victimized. No more going to children, and in this case of any race, but in particular it's targeting the norms of Western kind, isn't it? No more going to them and educating them on how to have anal sex and how to have same sex and how to have opposite sex and how to have orgies and whatever else they want to teach, right? You give it a name that packages it. And then when they try to rename it for their psychological warfare effort, which worked magnificently, it worked magnificently. I mean, even folks in the white sympathetic sphere who claim to know what's going on, except for those who are going free, who are implementing the method of go free, practicing the method of go free, except for those folks. Everyone else called it the don't say gay bill, didn't they? Worked just beautifully. If they tried to make that move on the bill to become law, that would have been called what, if I had been in there, something that would have identified the victims. It would be very easy for me and everybody to point out, and once they hear me saying it on TV and in the newspapers, it's very easy for everybody to point out and promulgate that anybody trying to rename this thing is a pedophile who wants to harm children. That is how this would have worked. So you're going to use the name I give it because I am going to load it with premises that identify those who oppose and try to rename it as pedophilic in nature. This is the kind of stuff, folks. I was in the nerve center for the conservative movement. I had these fervid conversations. We'll just call them conversations. But on the inside, it's as a staffer, as a participant that way, you're not going to be able to make it happen. This has got to be the will of the people, and the people have to be smart enough to see who, and this is the problem, who really needs to be at the acme, who really needs to be at the apex. And the average person, they can't see it. So if you all have ideas on how to help people to clear up their vision, make them lucid and able to see who and therefore what fruit should be produced from the leadership, reach out to me. I don't think we need to go any longer with this. We're at the quarter of the hour. So DeSantis, is he going to be your next MAGA leader? Is he going to be is he what you want? Is he better than everybody else? Can he be influenced? We may or may not have influence going on with his staff. But can he be influenced? And if so, how far can he be influenced? And what oppositional influences are present? And the influence that is exerted on him, is it rigid enough when it needs to be rigid? And is it protean enough? Is it liquid enough when it needs to be liquid? Well, that's going to be determined by how intelligent, and when I say intelligent, remember the vast majority of how intelligent the leadership is. of that influence on him. When I say intelligence, remember the vast majority, in my opinion, of women confuse feelings with thinking. And the vast majority of men, maybe even a greater percentage of men than women confusing feelings with thinking, maybe even a greater percentage of men confuse memory and the recitation of facts with thinking, with intelligence. It's not intelligence when you have just memorized a bunch of information. 5 biggest Supreme Court cases to watch. The U.S. Supreme Court tends to issue its biggest decisions in June. With a conservative supermajority of justices, the public is focused on what new precedents the court could set or even overturn. Here's the big picture. Dobbs versus Jackson, Women's Health Organization. This is the most prominent abortion case to head to the Supreme Court in years and could potentially lead to the end of Roe versus Wade and other precedents that protect abortion access. Details: the court is considering the constitutionality of a 15-week abortion ban in Mississippi. The law has been blocked since 2018 when an appeals court ruled that it placed an undue burden on abortion access. So you all are watching this closely. You're seeing that the mob, the just animals, this filth, this squalid filth from ramshackle hell, Democrat voting anti-whites, are showing up at the houses of the Supreme Court and Supreme Court justices, and it's just permitted to happen. It's just permitted to happen. If white folks or conservative folks of any race, any background, showed up at any judge's house, just imagine it. Your county judge. Imagine your little county judge. You showed up at the house and you're out there to intimidate and harass and threaten with your signage and your fake blood and all of that. Your local county judge, you would go to jail for 500 years. Nobody would ever see you again. This is allowed to happen at the homes and schools and pools of Supreme Court justices. There's going to be a lot of, I'm going to get this information to you all, and then going to see what you all said. If anything, there are any financial gifts, I'm going to look at them momentarily. So if you want to get them in, then get them in now. And then we're going to be wrapping up tonight. Biden versus Texas. The court will decide whether the Biden administration must continue to enforce the Trump-era Migrant Protections Protocol, most commonly known as the Remain in Mexico policy, which requires asylum seekers to return to Mexico as they await their U.S. immigration proceedings. We have, according to that chief that I saw on the news, it was like 3-point-something million in a year and a half that have crossed the border. So that includes people who were spotted, intruders who were spotted, intruders that were captured, border crossers, intruders who are people who were not invited. That's all. They're not evil. 15 of them are terrorists that were captured. Who knows how many other terrorists got in, though. So they are bad guys, wouldn't you say? But it just means that they're coming in without an invitation to come in. So are we going to have a scenario where the border already as porous as your average Democrat voter's front teeth? Is it going to remain that way or get worse? Or is there going to be some measure of law restored? By the way, this chief that I saw on the news, he mentioned that a judge ordered some action to take place again at the border because the judge said it's illegally not being done, so it needs to be done. And the Democrats working there just said, nah, we're not feel like doing it. I don't know the specifics. You'll have to check with CNN. And remember, anything that you hear here on any of the shows that I do is my opinion or it's a joke. And so therefore, if you want facts and details and specifics, you have to go to CNN. You have to go elsewhere to get them. But are we going to have a semblance? Is the Supreme Court going to say, well, it's got to be put back in place? And the Democrats are going to say, okay, but we just can't do it. We just can't seem to make it happen. New York State Rifle and Pistol Association Incorporated versus Bruin. This is the first Second Amendment case to be heard by the Supreme Court in over a decade. The justice will decide Justices will decide whether to allow laws that regulate concealed carry licenses. Laws that regulate concealed carry licenses. So essentially, in New York, a judge, some other person, has to say that you have enough of a threat to your life to allow you to have a concealed carry. That's what I believe it is. New York law requires applying to get a license to carry a concealed weapon to show that they have proper cause to carry a weapon. So you can't just, like in Virginia, you apply for your concealed carry, you do your training, you get your license. Really shouldn't be even that. But in Virginia, it's still open carry, except in like banks and bars and things like that, because good guys wear their guns where they can be seen. But nonetheless, in New York, if this does not get struck down by the Supreme Court, what they were doing in New York, then you'll have some crazed, purple-haired, genderless, who knows what, not a human being, maybe like an orca or something like this, who will be deciding whether or not you as a white man or you as a white woman get to have a firearm concealed on your person. And if you're in a state where you can't open carry, but you don't get to have that, then either. And then that's another step to the total abridgment of the right to self-defense. You see, I would be saying in office, right to self-defense. And guess what? That would catch on. But nobody's saying it. Because we're led by people who hate America and the white race, and people who are midget wits. And midwits at best. West Virginia Environmental Protection Agency. Of course, if that is not corrected by the Supreme Court, that will continue to make it harder on businesses to conduct business, which means your employment. Kennedy versus Bremerton School District, another one that is aimed right at white people because it goes after Christianity. If they weren't they Christians? They pray to Jesus Christ. High school football coach Joseph Kennedy, who would pray midfield after games. Every sports team you pray, but you know what? That's a norm for Western kind, and so they're going to destroy it. They're going to destroy it. That is why it's being destroyed, not because it's Christian. If white people didn't practice Christianity, they would be fine. You see, they have no problem with Jews. They got no problem with Muslims. No problem. Only Christianity. Why is it Christianity? Because white people. How many white people are Jews? 0. How many white people are Muslim? Very few. I shouldn't say 0 for Jews. Very few, right? Next to none white people are Jews. Very few white people are Muslim. Lots of white people Christian. Country was founded by a bunch of white Christian people. That is the reason why the crosshairs are on Christianity. You never get it right if you don't see it for what it is. We got 2 over here on entropy, and I am deeply indebted to these wonderful people. First is up was Mrs. Jess Horst, who financially gifted $5. Thank you, dear sister. 9 children, and she can still financially gift, and she gives a white heart emoji. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Putting all of this together to be able to do this show and to try to help spread the good work that we're doing, as many of you know, is not easy. It's why people like No White Guilt Clips is busy making clips all day long and all night long. He's got his life to live. He's got to work. He's got to eat. He's got to, etc. Making clips all the time because he can look at me and he can say, geez, that guy's just going at it all the time. And he's being absolutely throttled to oblivion. So we got to try to make it happen because we have a method, the Go Free method, that works when you practice it. And this champion here, dude bro moment, let's get 07s, raucous emojis for this guy. $50 financial gift. And he writes for white well-being. A most humble and deep Prometheus hails to you, my friend. God bless you. Your munificence, your princely giving is most welcome. Thank you for always being there. And look over here. on Odyssey. Hello to everybody over there. Remember, you got to tag me if you want me to see what you have to say to me. And looks like we don't have any financial gifts there, but we might have a couple of tags for me. I will come back to that. Hello to everybody over there on D Live, and I will swivel around to here. I see the great champion Reptile is with us, a true gentleman, a man of the West. Great to see you, brother. And those pendants are just works of art. God bless you. Thank you so very much. We have Art Acrobats. Thank you, brother. Great to see you. Financially gifting $2.14. And with that $2.14, he writes this: everyone can do something for white well-being. Yes, they can. And thank you for writing that. It's like perfectly timed. And talking about a guy a moment ago, no white guilt clips. God bless you, brother. $5 financial gift. He says here with that $5, you are on fire tonight. Your passion is inspiring. Well, thank you so much for that. And thank you for acknowledging it with that financial gift. I really appreciate it. I'm going to turn around back over here to Odyssey. I got a new monitor here, a small one, smallest monitor that I could find, a display monitor, that is. And we're going to be working after we get done here, immediately continue working, and we're going to be getting up the work on this other monitor so that I can have more info at my fingertips and be better able to serve white well-being, America, and all that we're doing here. We have, it looks like, we have we have Foundation 21st Century. I've always respected my elders. It was never a matter of what generation it was. This hatred of boomers is a psyop created to establish division. It may well be. It may well, because malevolent people in charge, and it's just any number of things that will divide, they will use, they will implement. He says, period. It's a psyop, period. So-called leaders today who push this are simpletons at worst and will be considered enemies. Well written, brother. He says here again, Foundation's 21st Century, you are correct in your description of post-war European Americans. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here, and thank you for tagging me. For some reason, quite a few people find that instruction a difficult one to follow. And I'll jump to the top of this, and we will then get out of here as we're almost at the hour and a half mark. I got to the hour and a half mark. No, just beyond that, almost up to an hour and 45 minutes. And some jackass wrote, 2 hours, I can't do it, dude. I mean, sometimes the midget wittery, you don't have to do it in one sitting. Come on. Or even all of it. All right, so let's go back. The great Natarific is with us, another champion, always at work, always active. If you want to get involved, you can look into the description below. You have the outreach team there, link there. You can reach out to them. You also have the general chat. Get on the general chat. We should have like 200,000 people there by now. The only thing that's keeping people from participating is because they want to bring up their particular little view of what's happening in the world and how to remedy it. Stop doing that. Stop. Get involved in doing something that works. Franklin is here. Natarific says, will you please say hello to username Village Idiot? He thinks this is pre-recorded. Hello, Village Idiot. Why does he think it's pre-recorded? I see right here. How do you know this isn't pre-recorded? I mean, I know that there are so few errors, but that is because I am brilliant. I am a genius. And there are people behind me who are even brighter. And we're making this happen. So I know it might seem like magic, but in this case, the man is before the curtain. All right. Great to see everybody, all the wonderful folks out here. I mean, seeing these names, you're all going to be in the books. You're going to be in the Hall of Heroes. Art Acrobats says Civ Cucks take credit for our successful white positive actions. That's despicable, really? You mean like getting people saying anti-whitism and our concepts? I'm not surprised by that at all. Thank you for letting me know. There's people with horrible characters, and folks just have no ability to be able to distinguish a great leader from a charlatan, from a huckster, from a mountebank, from a rapist, from a murderer. I mean, they just have no ability to discern. It's insane. It's insane. I mean, you look at Cernovich, for God's sake. Great Lane Sabatino is here. Did you hear Newt Gingrich deny white erasure on Laura Ingraham this morning, Jason? No, I didn't. So he said white erasure? Quickly, if you're there, if anybody else knows the answer to that, let me know. Did Laura say white erasure? Or did he just say, did he use the word replace or replacement? All right, let's gonna be wrapping up here in just a minute, folks. I went to the gym today. I went to 2 gyms today. And I've started, if you stayed this long, then you're in for a treat, because I will tell you, if you're trying to be in shape, you're trying to work out, I have moved into a phase of burnouts. So now what I'm doing is I'm doing my reps with, and one of these days I might reveal it, my specific, the specific way I do, it rotates, but things need to be cyclical, like government and economy have never been. But I'm doing my normal set, and then a certain rough percentage of burnout. And I kicked my ass today, but I am getting strong. And it's one of those scenarios where it doesn't happen very often, but it's been going for so long for me. You work out, you know what I'm talking about. You play sports. Folks know who've been here for a long time, could have played professional baseball in the minor leagues. I decided to go in and play college football. But this like out of nowhere sudden growth and strength is a thing that can happen for some. And, but it hasn't lasted this long for me ever. So I just keep getting stronger and stronger. Hector says, oh, first Elaine Sabatino, I bet Newt wouldn't dare do an interview with Tucker. He played softball with Ingram. Yeah, I've met and spoken with him. Most people don't realize I worked in the nerve center sorry, folks. There should be action figures. Well, stick around. Stick around. That's all I'll say. Franklin's saying there should be action figures. You mean of us? Stick around. I have met and spoken with him, not as like a little fanboy or something like that. But I worked in the nerve center. I had these people, and it's so funny. They'll name these folks. They'll talk about the theories that certain, and I won't go down the list of the different names because I'm not going to name drop like others. But they'll talk about, well, if Jason only knew that this person came up with this theory and he said that, and Jason only knew that this other established academic that worked in powerful political circles came up with this theory and established this. So Jason, I know them. I worked with them. I had lunches with them. I sat in their offices, just me and them. If Jason only knew, I'm just going to go cite this guy. And if Jason only knew, retards, retarduses. I'm never getting in that phone booth, that retardus. the original one was all right. What's going on with the retardus is something completely different. Hector says, thoughts on Jesse Lee Peterson? Great question, Hector. Thank you for that question. And are you asking about the conversations that are going on now about whether or not he's a homosexual? Or because I don't have any info on that, so I can't speak to it. I think is he married? Does he have any children? I don't know. I haven't investigated. It's not a big, thing for me. What do I think about him in general as a person, as a human being? Or if you ask me again, tag me quickly, ask me again, specifically, what is it about Jesse Lee Peterson? What do I think about the performance value of his shows? What do I think about him being a Christian? The first thing that comes to my mind when I hear Jesse Lee Peterson is that he's talked to everyone in the white sympathetic sphere except for me. Everyone except for me. Content creators that are nobodies, done nothing, and have already left. He's talked to them, not me. And we've had people, two different guys that work for him that identify, hey, this is a guy for the show. Two different ones have gone to him, we know for sure, and said, hey, no white guilt, this guy. Have him on. No. Victorian Time Traveler, we would call it the Protect Children Act. Oh, yeah, it's a great name, brother. Great name. All right. Pearl Lady, great to see you. I wish you were in charge of the country. Me too. Things would be fixed real fast. It would be real messy, but it would get fixed quickly. Oh, I want to really quickly say just a couple of my political views as well, and that is that if I were in office, I would be, unlike normal Republicans, I would be for workers' rights. Normally that's a thing that Democrats give lip service to, and then they screw over American workers, in particular white American workers, and then you have non-white American workers that are collaterally damaged by that. But I would actually be for workers' rights against the wealthy, against the business owners, not to put business owners out of business. I want business owners to do well. I want them to do well. But we don't have a balance. The Founding Fathers created a balance. They attempted to create a balance in the different branches of government. And they tried to balance out the power of Christianity against the state. There was no effort to balance, a forethought effort to balance the wealth with those who have to work. That has to be balanced by way of their time. That has to be balanced as well. And none of it can be static. It has to be cyclical because the human animal is cyclical. So I would be for workers' rights. I would also be a fervent advocate and champion of men's rights. Because there are all kinds of advocates for women everywhere you look. I would stand up for men, and that would be all men, but my focus would be on the men that are victimized the most, and that's white men. So it'd be all men, but the particular focus would be on white men because they're victimized the most. And so I would do everything in my power, put forward any bills, etc. Like I've talked before about like the Amber Heard bill, the Amber Heard turd bill that would protect men from the ruination of their characters by women who are just spun up with emotion and pissed off. They left them or whatever it is, and out to ruin, to defame the men. I would want laws in place so that the men could reclaim their identity from what the women had done, which could be something like when a man wins such a case, maybe the state prosecutes a woman for ruining a man's reputation. When the state and the man wins the case against the woman, if she's found to be guilty, the state would pay with taxpayer dollars to let everyone know that she was a lying whore, that she was a lying bitch about the man, so that her reputation would be destroyed. And then that would discourage other women from these little tactics of controlling men by way of the power they wield in courts and the social power they wield in society. Take that one, you liars. Reptile says, it's a pleasure to serve our people, but you are the real champion, brother. 07, no, brother, don't. I salute you as peer. You're as peers. You're magnificent. Thank you. You and your wife, your whole family. Great folk. Ardent Party says, good evening, No White Guilt. I want to pick your brain. How do you feel about the great white gulag on your northern border? Canada. How do I feel about Canada? I love the real Canada, which exists in the hearts of all white Canadians inherently. Now, some of those white Canadians are anti-white, so they wage war on themselves. And there are non-white Canadians that are wonderful people, and they've decided with their capacity as a human being to make decisions that they want to support Canada as well, and they're magnificent folks as well. The day may come, I'll just say, when I was a child and I used to see the crazy things happen to our people in Canada, very young man, maybe just preteen or just like 13 or something like this. I used to think, one of these days America's going to have to invade and free all of the good people in Canada of this anti-whitism that's destroying the country. I mean, it's not like Canada could resist an invasion. Give me a break. Great warriors in Canada, great warriors, wonderful, wonderful champions. I've met some of them, wonderful people, but there's just too few of them. And so it would be, maybe just pick up the phone and say, okay, it's over. You're out of office. It's ours now. And then just turn it over to the good Canadians once you have freed them of this anti-white tyranny going on. I mean, the kind of thing, they are absolutely wholesale white erasing that country. They're chasing white people around, in my observation, my opinion, from community to community, province to province. Absolutely despicable. But they're champions, real heroes up in Canada. I don't like this impression of Canadians that many Americans have, and that they're sort of like this. And it's because there's so many made their way into comedy and this sort of thing, and that they're like goofy. And there's great comedians that come from Canada too. But there are wonderful, patriotic, hardcore folks up there, good people of all stripes. Let's see. We have. Okay, so Elaine finally got back. Thank you. I should say finally. I finally got down to her comment. She said Newt Gingrich denied replacement with the word white ahead of it. The AI is listening for that, folks. So he denied replacement with the word white in front of it. Excuse me. He is obviously one of the individuals that his influence will have to be reduced when strong, white, victimized, and angry men claim the identity of the resistance to the Democrat Party. That makes him, to deny that white erasure is taking place in America, is to make him a radical anti-white, radically anti-white. Rory has a question over on entropy, and thank you for that. Elaine says, white patriarchy is better than dark matriarchy. Yes, I agree. Victorian time traveler, false accusers should receive the punishment for which they falsely accuse someone of in all circumstances. Yeah, and I've argued for that. In fact, when I was on the Hill, I argued that someone should put forward a bill that would give a woman who claimed that she was raped the penalty of a rapist if it were found to be fraudulent. No more walking away from an accusation that drags a man through the horrors of the possibility when he did not. All rapists, I'm not a fan of rapists. I would punish them far harder than they are punished today if I were in charge. They get a slap on the wrist. they'd never be able to rape again if I were in office. So, but at the same time, these false allegations, got to put an end to that straight away. Ardent Parody says, perhaps I'm poisoned by my people's Newfoundlanders' spiritual demoralization since Confederation. The East feels lost to me. Hopefully Western Canada, not your BC, can hold. I hope so. That's why, I mean, maybe I was right when I was 13 or whatever it was, that, maybe Canada needs to be conquered and then given back to actual good Canadians. Lockie says, if you had the power to, would you adopt a gold standard or a fixed standard to replace the fiat system? Well, we really don't have time today. That's a great question. We need to address that on a bigger scale with more time, the scale of time. But the all of the arguments, this is how I see it, for the say an economy. We'll just leave it there. All of the different arguments are hobbled by the idea that it has to be, you even use the word fixed, so that it would be unchanging. And none of that ever works. It can't be unchanging. Every time we create something that is inflexible, it falls because we are cyclical. But ultimately, when you talk about gold versus fiat is the ability to kill you if you don't use it. And to me, to my mind, that is a better backing to a system than gold. Gold relies on somebody to say, I like it and I want it, versus the ability to kill you, which is you're going to use this or you're going to die. All right. We have Rory over here. And financially gifting $3. Thank you, brother. He says, Dear Jason, what is your opinion of Marine Le Pen's recent performance in the French parliamentary elections? Her 89-seat result means that Macron no longer has a majority in his own government. The last I saw about her was that she was heading speedily away from what inside the anti-white narrative is called right-wing positions. She was trying to come more toward the center. And what does it mean? Well, for me, as an observer, it doesn't mean, with the little knowledge that I have of French politics, it doesn't automatically mean that there is a shift in the population and what they want that is favorable to what inside the anti-white narrative are considered right-wing positions. There may be some of that, but it doesn't mean just like prima facie that that's taking place. And it could very well be like what's going to happen in the United States in November. People are seeing the destruction to their way of life, the ruination of all things, the white erasure in France, and they just want to push it back a little bit. And so they're going to vote out the people who are in office in the hopes that they'll push it back a little bit. That's probably what's happening. What I would also imagine is that there are other financiers, that it wasn't just a strategic decision for Marie Le Pen to move toward the center, that their financiers came in and said, we'll help if you come this direction. And if that's the case, that is not good, because that means they, the one who pays the piper calls the tune. They own what she's going to end up doing while in office. And if she were to move against them, then they would pull their money support and potentially support the opposition. And that's something so we would end up with somebody that we would all sit around saying, well, remember when she was thus and such, maybe she's just getting ready. And one day once she has enough, she'll do. And in reality, she's just you'll be election after election until you finally give up on her. That's also a possibility. And in fact, it's more likely to me that it's something like that, regrettably. I mean, unless she starts doing some really radical things, unless her party starts doing some really radical things in France. If they do, then I'll reevaluate it. I would be impressed. Archangel will be wrapping it up here. He says, I say we refer to groomers as child predators because they prey on the innocence of vulnerability of kids. Also, there is a sexual implication without calling them pedophiles. Well, that's not a bad suggestion. I think I suggested on one Going Free show that since there were so many people who were arguing, well, there's a big difference between somebody who's committed a pedophilic act and somebody who is just teaching children things that we know can lead to this sort of thing, but they're not necessarily of the belief, or you can't convince an audience of one or more that they are of the belief that it's certainly going to lead to pedophilia, and that's why they're teaching them. And then as a consequence, I suggested, what was it exactly? Was it like pedophilic grooming? Pedophile grooming? You can't just use groomer pedophile groomers. You can't just use groomer because of the association in your lived experience of positive things with the word groomer. And you notice that all the people who push back against me there, and they said, "Oh, just call them groomers. It resolves it." They don't have an argument to answer my argument. So, I mean, that's like a child like kicking sand. It's really ridiculous. Child throwing a tantrum. You have to address the lived experiences. That is what the psychological warriors at the top of the Democrat Party and anti-whites in general, that's what they're doing. They are saying, what is the lived experience of the individuals? Is it a positive? And you look at all of these that people keep using, the replacement with with the word great in front of it. And what are the others that they use? They know these lived experiences are the ones that are going to tint and inform how a person feels about a specific subject, and therefore determine what their actions are ultimately going to be. And so when I talk about this, and there's no argument back that says, oh no, it's the exact opposite, let me tell you all of the different ways, it's just people just throwing tantrums. Okay. But we're not going to get anywhere with that. Right, like a pedophilic groomer. Because you can say, in my opinion, that that education, those teachings are going to lead to this. And so that's what I'm calling them. And then when you call them that, that's going to stick in people's head that, well, wait, this leads to pedophilia? And what is that in their lived experience? Well, if maybe they were sexually abused, or maybe they've heard lots of stories of people being sexually abused, and maybe they have children, or maybe they have nieces or nephews, and they're going to say, I'm really feel disgusted by that. I don't want people doing that at this school. I don't want them. Or you could do, unfortunately, like we did in the UK, and you could just call these gangs of people, gangs that were grooming, and then you end up doing nothing. And I know exactly why nothing was done. I know exactly why it didn't percolate through the totality of our people there, because it is a positive association to be groomed. Who doesn't want to be groomed? I want to be groomed every time I'm going to come on with all of you. I want to be groomed every time I leave the house. I don't go outdoors without grooming myself, with getting prepared. I shave. I dress nicely. I mean, come on. Let's not be silly. All right, folks. It is pretty late now. It is almost 9 o'clock, so maybe you are going to bed. It was great being with you. And then remember, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and just like last week, we might have an episode here or there just out of nowhere. So keep your eyes open for that as well. And I'm still looking for suggestions and tips and things that we can do. I had, for example, I had this up that I could put up for you. I didn't even think of it because we haven't been doing it. And this is a video by a colleague of mine, Mr. Jared George. And then we have this. And you can see these are paintings by Final Blossom. Put this video together. It's magnificent. These are all European paintings. So we can put other things up on the televisions. Let me know, and we'll make that happen on a more regular basis so we can have a lot of fun together. And I'll make sure to get these up. Like, somebody will have to remind me. This is still, we're still in that 10 episode phase to see whether or not we're going to keep doing Jason Goes Political or not moving forward. But the studio is great, so we're having fun, and we got to make best use of it. And other than that, sweet dreams and good night, America.